Hi guys, it's James from Divine Crochet. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use Surface Crochet to create any pattern or design that you would like, so you can add these to your crochet pieces. I'll show you all of the process of me doing this, from designing the piece all the way to finishing it off. This video is intended to help you guys create any design that you would like. I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks I've learned along the way. I have this crochet garment that I want to add an extra detail to. So without further ado, we'll get into the video. Your first step is going to be you have to design the graphic that you would like.
As I said earlier, I wanted to put a design on this top because I wanted to add a little bit of more interest because it's quite a basic top. So your first step in this process is going to be to actually sketch out the item that you want to do your surface crochet on top of, so you're ready to start your designing process.
When it comes to designing this top, I had a few different ideas, so I wanted to sit down, do a bit of research and sketching before I came up with my final idea. I wanted to do something to do with human anatomy just because I haven't done a piece like that for a long time. So I came up with this sketch of some muscles that I'm going to embroider on my top. Originally I was going to do a rib cage, but I have a similar piece in the works at the moment, so I thought I'm going to save that embroidery for another time. So this is a very rough sketch, but for me, I just like to know whereabouts I'm going. Me having a rough idea also means that I can change things as I go if need be without feeling too distressed by it. So now I have this design all done, I want to fit this onto the garment that I want to make.
This step is all about making sure that the final pattern sits exactly where you want it to. So I'm making a garment, so for me it's important that all of the mapping that I do is going to be whilst I have this top on. Different projects will have different amounts of needs when it comes to mapping on your surface crochet. So for this bag, I really wouldn't need to do a lot of mapping just because I'm just doing a few basic lines. As for this top though, I want the muscles to kind of fit roughly to the scale of how they would on a human, if that makes sense. So for me, this mapping is not only to do with placement, it's to do with the size of the final graphic. So for an item like this, placement is going to be a bigger step than for something a little bit more basic.
When it comes to mapping out your design, you can go ahead and use something like chalk if you want a really rigid structure as to what you're doing. But for me, I like to allow myself room to experiment and be creative, so I'm just going to use some stitch markers.
As I mentioned before, a lot of this mapping out process is to do with placement and scales. So my first placement is going to be these stitch markers down the center just to mark where the line of symmetry for this pattern is going to be. Then I'm going to use some other stitch markers just to reference certain points of the pattern, which I've also indicated on my drawing of the design. You just want to get to a point where you could recreate the design that you have on paper on your garment or crochet piece.
No matter whether you're using stitch markers or chalk, please remember that you don't have to plan out your whole design. For me, this mapping out process is just about placement, so as long as I add enough detail onto the garment, kind of indicating placement of my design, I'm going to be fine. I personally think mapping out your whole project can sometimes hinder you because you're trying to make that design work.
So for example, with the spiral bag, I feel like a lot of people would want to mark out the whole spiral, but I just indicated the center of the bag and then freehanded the spiral. As our surface crochet is going to go through holes naturally created in the panel, I believe freehanding a lot of the lines will help create smoother lines rather than trying to recreate a predetermined design and your hook maybe not naturally fitting through the spot that you've indicated with your pattern.
Remember, this is part of my creative process. You can go ahead and map out the whole thing if that's not your thing, but from my experience, actually a lot of my crochet pieces turn out better when I do a lot less planning. Once you've mapped out your project, you're ready to start surface crocheting.
Because of the two previous steps that we've taken, this process is actually going to be quite easy. I have a separate tutorial video on how to surface crochet, and that goes through how to surface crochet through a bunch of different materials. I'll leave that linked below, but basically the premise of doing a surface crochet is you're just doing a slip stitch with a piece of crochet fabric in between. So I would insert my hook, get a loop, bring that through, and then I would take that loop that I've just pulled through the fabric and pull that under the loop on my hook. But basically all you need to do is follow the stitch markers or the guide that you've set yourself. So as you see here, I'm going to start by creating the pictorial muscles, and what I'm doing is I'm crocheting down the line of symmetry till my designated point where I'm going to start my curve. Depending on how you've marked out your design, your stitch markers might mean something different. For me, as I say, I always reference where my stitch markers are on my drawn design, just so I can reference that if I kind of get confused as to what a stitch marker means, which to be fair doesn't really happen that often, but it's nice to know that that's there just in case. But we're going to do that for each line that we've done in our design. So each line that we've drawn is going to be represented by a line of surface crochet. But from here, really a lot of your hard work is done, and you can just go ahead and freehand crochet your design. I would still keep kind of visually checking it, but because of all the mapping out and designing that we've done, we don't really need to do an awful lot of trying on, which slows down the process quite a lot. That's why I like to do this process, just so I can do the whole design in one sitting. This design started off looking a little bit dubious, but I ended up just trusting the process and I was very happy with how it turned out. Also, ignore the fact that you can see my French braids in here. I've been doing that a lot recently just because I do really need to cut my hair. But once you've finished adding your design onto your crochet piece, you're ready to sew in your ends and you're finished with your project. Depending on how complicated your design is, you might spend a lot of time on this process. For me, this was actually quite a quick design to do.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment and subscribe if you did enjoy it. As you can tell, surface crochet is really easy to do. I just take the precautions that I've talked about to make sure that the end project is something that I'm actually happy with. So I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. Please enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.